Britney Spears' request to remove her father from her conservatorship was denied by a judge. I am shocked, and that's why I brought in two lawyers to help me break this down with you. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and this broke last night. A lot of people were sending me this. Thank you to everybody who did. I'm here with Andrea Burkett. Thank you, Andrea, for being here. So happy to have you. Andrea is a practicing lawyer out in Washington. So happy. You may have seen her work with the Justice for Johnny Depp campaign. Fans out there have seen her out there doing some great work, trying to bring more information to that light. Thank you for being here, Andrea.
Thank you.
Also, so happy to have her back. Lindsay Glazer, my friend, amazing lawyer. You can see her, the Alpha Bitch, over on lindsayglazer.com, comedian, lawyer. Also support her on Lindsay Glazer on Twitter. So happy to have you back, Lindsay. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Always good to have you. Excited to have you both here because this story is crazy to me. I don't understand what's going on, but I was already talking to you both in DMs and getting information. I thought, let's do this as a video. This could offer some great insight. So before I get to you guys talking, let's just recap to people who are unaware what happened. Britney Spears' request to remove her father from her conservatorship was denied by a judge. We all heard the harrowing testimony this week, and this is the first time now a judge, after hearing her testimony, has denied her request. The judge denied Britney's request to remove her father as sole conservator of her estate without prejudice. While the singer's court-appointed attorney, Samuel Ingham, filed papers in November 2020, the ruling is noteworthy given that Judge Penny signed the document on Wednesday, 1 week after Britney's shocking plea to the court, calling her conservatorship abusive. The filing states that the court found Britney to be substantially unable to manage his or her financial resources or to resist fraud or undue influence. Singer's attorney claimed in documents his client was afraid of her father and would refuse to perform again if remained in control of her estate. Jamie made his stance clear on co-conservator Jody Montgomery in his own documents filed Tuesday. Britney's father filed papers blaming Jody Montgomery for most of the singer's issues, like not being able to make her own reproductive choices. In a new statement, Montgomery says she has been a tireless advocate for Britney over the past 2 years and hopes to create a path for termination of the conservatorship. Britney is under this conservatorship on both her estate and her person. And her father controls all financial decisions as conservator of the estate, while Montgomery is in charge of the superstar's medical and personal choices, which happened 2 years ago. They did remove Jamie as her personal conservator, but not of her entire estate. But obviously, all of this is connected to money. Everything she does in her personal life can affect her money and her balance, her bank balance. So Jamie really still is in connection of all this. I want to get both of your insight on why this happened. Lindsay, let's go to you first. When you see all this, what is your take? Why do you think a judge would would ignore her plea after finally speaking up the way she did and not remove her father, who she's made very clear she's uncomfortable with, she doesn't trust? What is your insight on this, Lindsay?
Well, it's interesting because your first thought is to go, someone's being paid off, there's corruption. And then when you think about it, I saw in the documents that, Jody, the co-conservator, is like a licensed private fiduciary, which means she's like done this before, like she does conservatorships before. Then I think maybe there's some stuff we're not seeing. We're just seeing this case tried in the media. I don't know what they're not allowed to release in the media, if there's mental health records there, if they're sealed, what aren't we seeing? But even if what the judge said is true, that Britney Spears has like stuff going on that makes her incapable of like managing her finances or et cetera, Jamie Spears isn't the only person who can help her manage. You can have, any sort of person on a conservatorship. It doesn't have to be a family member. It can just be appointed by someone who's licensed to do so. And it is true what Britney said, she doesn't want to feel like she's working for the people she's paying. They're living off of her labor. So that doesn't exclude her having to have a conservatorship, but it certainly makes it suspect that a judge wouldn't remove Jamie Spears, especially the part where she says they forbid her from removing an IUD, which seems, how old is Britney? In her 30s? That seems crazy and reeks of sterilization issues we've had in the past of just a father, there's something going on there. Either we're not seeing it, someone's being paid off, there's mental records we're not seeing, or some combination of both.
Yeah, she's not a child anymore. She is a woman, and it's interesting because feels like her parents are still controlling her life, and that's part of the issue with so many fans. Andrea, what is your take on all this?
So, Andy, my take on this situation is that it's in every case, it's really important not to rush to judgment until all of the information is in. And we are hearing a one-sided account of this situation. That's by design. These are proceedings that can involve extremely personal, extremely confidential information, allegations, and details that could be extremely damaging, not just in terms of publicity, but in terms of a person's own well-being if they were to be made public. And so given the highly sensitive nature of what happens in this type of situation, it's almost inevitable that we're never going to get a full picture. Possibly one of the worst things that could happen would be to get a full picture of Britney, warts and all, with all of the medical issues or other problems that she may have had. That possibly the worst thing I think many of us could imagine happening. So it's important to remember that the guardianship, or the conservatorship as they call it in California, it isn't intended to be a protective proceeding. Now, I'll be the first one to come out and acknowledge that that often the people that are closest to someone can transform protection into exploitation pretty quickly. And that type of thing absolutely happens in this context. It may be happening here, but we just don't know. To answer your bottom line question about why did this happen, I'm going to give you the boring legal answer about why this happened. And why it happened is because Britney's request to remove Jamie as a conservator did not meet the standards that are set out in California Probate Code Section 2650, which you can, go and review if you want. But basically, there's specific standards, specific requirements that have to be shown that justify the removal of a conservator after that person has already been appointed by the court. And the idea is because in making that original determination, the court already had to hear evidence about what was going to be in Britney's best interest, who was going to be in the best position to serve those, and so forth. And so the court typically isn't going to revisit that decision unless there's a substantial change in the circumstances or some other reason to believe it's no longer acting in her best interest. So at this point, the court did deny it without prejudice, meaning she's not saying, Britney, you can never come back and do this again. She's just saying at this point in time, we don't have the information to say that these standards have been met, that he should be terminated, and that she is welcome to bring that back to the court at another time.
Well, I'm glad you had that without prejudice is what I was going to ask. And Lindsay, I'm going to go to you. Like, what is this bad for Britney? Like, should fans actually be worried?
No, because she said without prejudice. That just means come back with more evidence or a change in circumstance. But what is interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, Britney said to the judge she didn't know she could have her own lawyer and was using the lawyer from the conservatorship to argue for release of the conservatorship. I'm not as familiar with that part of the story, but from the outside looking in, that looks like a conflict of interest. But Andrea's right. From a legal standpoint, you just have to meet those requirements. If you didn't meet those requirements, the judge has to, dismiss it on its face. She dismissed it without prejudice. It's like anything. If you file a amendment in court, and the judge goes, like, this doesn't meet the normal standards of filing a civil case. It says just, go back and do this again. That's all that means.
What can
but
Britney
it is interesting
do?
That
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
What?
Go ahead. Answer what we're going to say, and then I want to get to what can Britney do next. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Well, she can file with new information and with a new attorney or an attorney who's specialized. But what is interesting is she's saying the circumstances haven't changed. How long has she had this conservatorship?
Yeah, was it 13 years?
And how old's Britney?
It's 30 something. I can Google
30 something, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of insane to think that let's say she's 33, and I'm just making up that number, that nothing has changed. There's been no change in circumstance from the time she was 20 to 33.
39.
There's no maturity. There's nothing. She hasn't none of the mental, let's say she was getting mental health and help, and that nothing has changed. Nothing's improved. Everything's perfect. It is totally believable without the evidence or not the family member. I mean, we've all heard tons of stories about like kid, actors, parents stealing their money, using them for their money because they don't work, right, etc. That's not even surprising in the least that could happen to any child actor or, famous. It happened all the time. It happened to Dane Cook, in the last few years of his stepbrother managing his money and then stealing, and it just wasn't in a legal conservatorship context. But thinking that like there's been no circumstance change for 13 years just from like an aging standpoint, I mean, seems kind of bananas.
Yeah, and I will go back to you now, Andrew, to get your thoughts. But like where I'm confused is like this is rare, right? This to control someone's life like this, someone who's seemingly working, putting together concerts, doing the amount of work that Britney's doing, and paying all these people. It does seem like what could be causing this behind the scenes? Like, well, maybe she's sick. We keep saying maybe there's more mental disorder. Does Britney have a right to say, you know what, put it out there, please put it out there so everyone understands what's going on? And then what celebrity doesn't have mental disorders at this point? I was joking, other people have pointed out, but like, let's be honest, Kanye West doesn't seem fully always together, right? But no one's controlling not only his business estate, but his entire life choices. Andrew, like what do you think about that sort of point of it? What could be really causing this? And do you think Britney at this point cares? It sort of feels like Britney wants to just get it all out there. How can someone control their personal life so far? What could be so bad?
Well, I hate to speculate, and unfortunately, that's kind of what we're stuck with at this point. Because we don't know. We just have this sort of partial picture of what happened in those, months and days leading up to her being hospitalized, and that, eventually translating into this conservatorship being put into place. So we basically saw a publicly disturbed Britney, and and that's about the gist of what we got. How is she different from Kanye? We don't know. I mean, Kanye has a cycle where, apparently he starts a church and, runs for president. And that's kind of how his illness manifests. With Britney, we don't know enough about her situation to know what her cycle is, what types of patterns to look for. If she is decompensating, what types of concerns would that raise? The thing I just want to mention real fast is that, part of why these are really difficult situations is because oftentimes, I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I deal with people who are often in crisis. And the problem is that they didn't have some type of safety net or protection, put in place to be able to help them so that it didn't get to that point of where, they ended up in jail. And so I see that all the time. It's almost kind of trite to point out because it's so common. And so there's very much a risk that Britney was going down that type of path. But Britney, just because she's a high profile, high wealth person, she had a family that, whatever their personal estrangements and conflicts and stuff were able to, come together, get her out of the influence of this Sam Lufty guy who, didn't seem to be really helping her personal well-being an awful lot. Most people don't have those types of resources. So it's hard to say what the worst case scenario could have been for Britney.
Yeah, and I want to get to what you're going to say, Lindsay, too. But yeah, I don't want to forget this point because it makes they say here, right? She's substantially unable to manage his or her own finances, resist fraud, undue influence. Is sort of like what we're saying here, right? And it's like, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of people who don't. So is that anybody who's sort of dumb deserves to be locked up in a conservatorship? And what couldn't one argue that maybe being locked in a conservatorship for 13 years where you're not allowed to make your own choices might not be helping her be able to grow, to learn how to make more choices? Sometimes you have to fail to learn. I mean, it just all seems so weird to me. Is this common? Like, I can't, does this happen a lot where a young person just can continue to be locked up into a conservatorship that controls her life and then be told to continue to work and do the things that pay for the people that are overseeing whether she gets to get out of her conservatorship? Lindsay, I want to go to you.
It's not that different from like a conditional trust where a family has like a lot of wealth and says, but in order to, take out like payments from this trust, you have to whatever, go to college, maintain, maintain whatever it is. Like it's usually for like younger kids. You have to go to college or maintain a job or at this thing. But it is also entirely possible that Britney's mental health stuff coming out and her like being taken advantage of because she's so rich by accountants or people promising her opportunities and her being innocent and leaving people. It's completely possible that any of that stuff coming out could actually hurt her career, hurt her financially, and put her in a position that would put her in a place which is exactly what Andrea is talking about, where people end up committing crimes because they're desperate and they don't have people protecting them, or they you've seen it 100 times, like children who end up like child stars who have hundreds of millions of dollars lose all their money because they don't know what they're doing. They spend it all. They end up homeless.
But isn't that part of life? Isn't she allowed to make those mistakes? She's a human. It's her money.
Sure, but she's got a family around her trying to, make sure she doesn't end up in that. We don't know she's manic. We know Kanye is manic and bipolar. We don't know what she is. Is she manic? Is she schizophrenic? She's clearly like what they thought originally when she shaved her head, that she was clearly a suicide risk, having a nervous breakdown in public. We don't know how any of that manifests. We do know that like mania.
We know they were taking away her kids. They were taking away her kids at the time. The paparazzi was relentless. It was a breakdown, I'm sure, but a breakdown most people might have had given the circumstances that she was pushed in. So we can't speculate. We don't know. And I appreciate this sort of broader conversation about what this could be, because I think it is important to reiterate, we don't know what's going beyond the scenes. But final thoughts from each of you. We'll go to you, Andrea, first. Like, for the Free Britney movement, for people out there who are upset, who believe like this is unjust, what do you say to them? How do they get some relief that maybe we will have more opportunity to figure out what's going on here and that Britney is in fact safe?
Oh boy. My view of the Free Britney movement is that I appreciate how compassionate and well-intentioned everybody who has supported Britney and expressed their concerns about her and respected her right to say her piece and to be heard, even if all of the conservatorship allegations are true and she does have impairments. She's a human being with feelings and a life experience, and she's entitled to express that and to be treated as a human regardless. I think that the hard part with this situation is accepting the humility of not knowing, and that fact that we shouldn't want all of Britney Spears's private problems to be out there for public consumption. My perspective does require people to put a certain amount of faith in the system and in the functioning of the system. I do typically believe that there are so many people involved in not just the conservatorship, but Britney's affairs, Britney's career, Britney's management. She has an enormous machine around her. And so to me, the notion that that the conservatorship, isn't well grounded, has conspiratorial roots. The idea that it could, even if that could happen initially, that it could go on for so long undetected, to me, that just does not seem like a likely explanation. I think the likely explanation is that Britney probably is extremely troubled. And the most important thing that we can do is to deal with that openly and with compassion. Compassion doesn't always mean agreeing with everything that everybody says. It doesn't always mean, accepting that somebody's words are certainly a reflection of their own feelings and their own experience, but that may or may not have a strong relationship with objective reality. Britney has said several things in her statement that I think are going to, it's going to become clear why Jamie is calling for this investigation. The marriage accusation in particular, Britney has said that the conservatorship conservatorship is preventing her from being able to marry her boyfriend. That's absolutely not true. Under California law, it's expressly written into there that conservatorship does not deprive a person of their right to marry. So there's no way the conservator could be responsible for that anyway. I think for myself and for people who have dealt with family members or friends that have mental illness, that have addiction, that have some of these problems that may be at the root of Britney's situation, speculating, but maybe that that can be a really difficult path to tread, because addiction and mental illness are not always, they don't always go hand in hand with, clear perceptions, clear memories. There's a lot of issues that can come up with things like, blame shifting and defensiveness and denial. And we can engage all of these compassionately without saying, oh, we're blaming Britney, or, Britney's not entitled to her feelings or anything like that. Britney is clearly suffering. And I think everybody who is concerned about the situation, regardless of what they think the right steps are at this point, are deeply concerned about her well-being.
I appreciate that insight. It's good. It's interesting to hear the other side like that, because I am definitely more emotionally invested and don't after hearing her. And I think it's wise for us to sometimes step back and be like, well, wait, we don't know the full story. I have trouble believing there's another side given what she said, and given what we're seeing with the legal system and some of the things that are happening in the news these days. I don't always trust the system. I try to. I want to. Lindsay, I know you need to go too, but I want to get your final thoughts on this topic as we wrap up this. Lindsay, final words.
My final thoughts are what Andrea's saying is true. However, like the idea that this couldn't go on so long with a big machine like surrounding her, to me is highly likely to me that it could go on exactly because there's a big machine surrounding her. I mean, I'm a stand-up comic. I see the industry. I see what it's done. I know some people who've been in it. It's not surprising to me that could go on. The truth is, we don't have the whole story. We don't know. All we're doing is speculating, and the best thing that could happen is for Britney to do what she needs to do, come back with a lawyer who's representing her and submit the evidence that she needs to be free so the judge can see something new. Like the fact she has a big machine around her, that big machine is there to protect money. It's
Correct.
Like human resources at your first job. It's not there to protect you. Yeah, you're supposed to report what happens, but it's there to protect the office, protect the company, to protect the CEO's bottom line. That's exactly what's going on here. Whether it's her family member or not, that's always the case in any big entertainment thing, and basically in anything. Follow the money.
I love hearing both sides of this, because we need to hear all sides. So thank you both. But that is so spot on, because it's like that's the struggle here. If she really has these problems, why are they working her to the bone? Why isn't she allowed to go take more vacations and take the money that she's earned under her name to do whatever the hell she wants with it? If she doesn't want to continue to invest it and make more things, isn't that her choice, not Jamie Spears' choice or anybody in her family's choice? Is really where I think a lot of us are so emotionally is like, how the hell is this going on? So we shall see. More to come. It sounds like she still has opportunities and paths to pursue this investigation, and everybody, and now even including Jamie Spears, is saying, let's absolutely look into some of these complaints. More to come, guys. I want to thank both of my guests so much for being here. Make sure you go support Lindsay Glazer, lindsayglazer.com, or Lindsay Glazer on Twitter. I will have their links down below, as well as Andrea. You can see her over on Twitter. She does do some legal insight on the Depp Heard case, so check her out if you like her takes. I appreciate both you guys being here so much. Hope to have you guys back. Make sure you guys have subscribed here to this channel if you haven't already. Hit the bell for all alerts, smash that like button, and leave your comments down below. Wasn't it nice hearing all sides for once? You may not agree, but it's good to hear it all. Stay tuned for more here on Popcorn Planet. Thank you guys so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks, Andre. See you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.